Hello, and we need to turn the light on. Hello, and welcome to Wellbeing Warrior Monthly. I'm super excited that you've joined me here today. It is World Book Day, and the question is, what is your favourite book of this year? So for me, so far, I'm still reading through Feel Better Fast and Make It Last by Dr. Daniel Amen, which is a really insightful book. If you are interested in your brain health, which I'm sure you are because you're listening to this livecast, then this is a great book to pick up. It's got loads of useful hints and tips in it. A really great book, and I know it's going to serve me well and also my clients well. Lily's favourite book is The Hungry Caterpillar, but I know that my dad is bringing out his book, Peter Pixie Visits the Rescue Centre. I think that's going to be my favourite book of the year, and if you want to get hold of that copy, it's been a real journey for him to get to the point where he is, where it's just going to be launched in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you visit the website peterandpaulapixie.com, where you can pre-order your books on that site. So without further ado, Wellbeing Warrior Monthly. Today we're going to talk about 3 things. The first thing is how to deal with overwhelm, and I'll bring some insight from personal experience to that. How can you really boost your confidence will be part 2, and then part 3 I will talk a little bit about brain function, and at the end I'll obviously wrap it up. So first of all, how do we deal with overwhelm? What I really want you to reflect on is the Wellbeing Warrior framework that I constantly talk about, because it's so simple to think about how we can take back control of our well-being when we think about the facts behind our well-being. So think of a time where you've really been in a position of overwhelm. Can you write that down? Make sure you write down an occasion where you've been overwhelmed. And what is it that really caused you to get overwhelmed? So write down the event that caused you to get overwhelmed. So I know for me, when I was going through my experience at the firm I was working for, I was going through a review plus dealing with a whole load of other things. It was the review itself and the pressure that it put on me that really caused me to feel overwhelmed with everything. So when we look at this Wellbeing Warrior framework, we look at the facts. Thinking back to your circumstance, perhaps you're in it now, write down how that feeling of overwhelm makes you actually feel. What emotions does it bring out for you? What does it do for you? Does it make you feel sad? Does it make you feel mad? Does it make you feel anxious? Does it make you feel stressed? Do you feel tense inside? Do you have physical symptoms of stress that come up with it? Do you get tired? What are all of those feelings that you get as a consequence of the overwhelm? Make sure you write those down. Then I want you to think about your thoughts. What is it that is making you think that you are overwhelmed with the particular example that I gave? So I thought that I would fail. I thought that I would be embarrassed by the business. I thought that I wasn't good enough. All these negative thoughts that came about, which drove me into that space of overwhelm. So what is it? What thoughts are you having that relates to the overwhelm that you're experiencing? And when you think about those thoughts, ask yourself the question, are they true? Is it true, that thought that I'm having? And then the second thing you want to ask yourself, is it 100% true? And this goes back to a previous session that I gave, talk about automatic negative thoughts and how we can take back control of them. There's lots of different types of thoughts that we can have that can rob our happiness. So make sure you think about what is it that's really causing you to have those thoughts of that feeling of overwhelm. Then when you go back to connections, so this is connections to your values, your beliefs, your direction of travel, your purpose in life, is this feeling of overwhelm that you're experiencing, is that actually the root cause of it that you've been looking at? Is that tied into your values, your purpose, your direction of travel? Or is it something that's actually not moving you forward in life? So perhaps, so if I take my work example, the work that I was doing was not getting me to the destination I wanted to head for. So the overwhelm that came upon myself, which I obviously brought upon myself, was not serving me in the here and now, nor was it going to serve me in the future. So the way that I dealt with it was I took myself away from that work environment. So is there something that you can do in terms of your connections? Are you connected to your purpose with regards to the root cause of your overwhelm? And if the answer is yes, then we need to ask ourselves, the next question is, what actions can I take to reduce the overwhelm? And I'll go through that in a second. And then finally, are your surroundings impacting this feeling of overwhelm? Perhaps you're having work done on the house, for example, and that's all kind of crashing down on you because your surroundings are not optimized to support your well-being. They're not optimized to support your brain health. So what is it that you can do about your surroundings? And perhaps one of the best things that you can do, if there's really nothing you can do personally, is you can't change the surroundings, change the surroundings you're in. So if you're dealing with a house refurb, then get away from the house and do the work that is necessary. As I said, if you're connected to your purpose on the work that you're doing, then do that work away from the area that's causing you the discomfort. So work through that. And the main thing here is to really focus on you, to focus on your well-being, to focus on how you can take back control of your brain health and reduce that level of overwhelm. So what 5 steps can we really take to help us with dealing with overwhelm? Well, the first one, which I've talked about, is to really write down what it is that's making you feel overwhelmed. What is it that's causing you to have that feeling of overwhelm? So second is, we talked about your feelings. So if there's a whole multitude of things that are causing you to feel overwhelmed, perhaps you have a to-do list that is way too long. What feelings can you tag to each of those items on your to-do list? How does that activity make you feel? And then how do you want that activity to make you feel? So look at how you want to feel about that activity and write those words down. And the reason it's important to do that is when we look into the future, we look towards how we want to feel, we're much more likely to live into that space. So make sure you tag the feelings that you have and the ones that you want to have with regards to the activities you're doing. Thirdly, think about how you can really prioritize those activities. So what is it that is a priority for you? Is this feeling of overwhelm that you're experiencing really true? Are you taking on too much for yourself? And actually some of the stuff that you're taking on isn't important. You may have put it at the top of your to-do list, but actually you've not prioritized that to-do list. It's not a priority list. And that priority list should tie back in to the connections to your purpose, to your direction of travel in life. So if you're not putting the priority items at the top that tie back into your purpose, into your values and beliefs, then make sure you have a rethink of that priority list. So one example for me here is making sure that the work that I'm doing is both supporting my business and also making sure that I'm not taking on too much and detracting from the time I spend with my daughter Lily. So making sure that you prioritise the things that are most important to you and the ones that are going to be the big needle movers for you with regards to your purpose and direction of travel in life. And then fourthly, is look at the low-hanging fruit. Look at the quick wins that you can have. Once you've got that priority list in place, when we have that real feeling of overwhelm, we sometimes feel that we can't actually take a step because everything is just weighing down on us and it's just too much. So looking at your priority list, the things that you know that you need to do that are really going to be those big needle movers for you, what can you do to break those things down, those activities down into bite-sized chunks so that you can take those small steps? And the reason it's important that we break those down into bite-sized chunks is because it makes it manageable then. I had many years ago, we went climbing up a mountain. It was a 4,000 metre peak, and one of the guys there had vertigo, and the only way that he could really deal with ascending this 4,000 metre peak, and it was up a knife ridge arête, was to break down his ascent into bite-sized chunks, and he broke it down into 50-metre increments. So every 50 metres, that was an accomplishment for him. So if you do have a really big mountain to climb, how can you break that down into bite-sized chunks and then really help yourself build momentum and get away from this feeling of overwhelm? Because that momentum that you build, that gives you motivation, builds your dopamine levels, and it makes it much easier for you to take back control of you and banish the overwhelm, so to speak. So look at the simple steps that you can take, the quick wins that you can have, that low-hanging fruit that's easy to do, to really diminish your to-do list, that's really going to move you forward and help you quash this feeling of overwhelm. And then finally, it's really important that you celebrate your successes. And we don't do this enough in society now. We're so quick to slight people. We're not so good at necessarily recognising people's achievements. It's quite a negative world that we live in. So let's bring some positivity into it. So even if you take that smallest of steps, even if you pick that low-hanging fruit, make sure you celebrate your achievements, because that will help you deal with that feeling of overwhelm. Really celebrate it and tell people about it. Tell people how successful you've been in achieving a certain task, getting ready for a certain event. Make sure that you really celebrate it. And if it is a certain event that's making you feel overwhelmed, look forward to the future and think about, how can I celebrate the success of this event? What is it I'm going to do afterwards? Or think about, if you are going to an event, one of the things that we do when we go to a very important meeting, for example, is we worry about all the things that could happen, all of the negative things that could happen. Now, the best thing to do here is to really frame that event into a positive, forward-looking mindset and think, how do I want those people, going back to this here again, how do I want those people to feel at the end of the meeting? What emotions do I want to impart on those people? Secondly, what thoughts do I want them to be left with? Write those thoughts down. Make sure those thoughts are positive. What connections do I want them to have? Do I want them to feel connected to the journey that I'm going on, to the purpose that I'm delivering? If I'm writing a book, I talked about my dad's book. If you're writing a book, are you wanting those people to be connected to the story. What is it you're wanting them to be connected to? Can they relate to it? The actions that you want them to take. What actions do you want them to take at the end of that really important meeting? And how can you make the surroundings of the environment that you're going in, that meeting, really optimal? So what handouts you need to bring, what presentation do you need to put together to really help them see that you're going to generate and impart the feelings that you wrote down in the first place, the feelings that you want them to be excited, enthusiastic, motivated, whatever the feelings are, then that really helps you frame your session where you may have in the first instance felt overwhelmed. Really frame it into a positive space so that you can go into it knowing what the outcome is that you want to achieve, and therefore really help you hopefully reduce that feeling of overwhelm, because you've primed yourself, you've prepared, you've practiced, and you've got a plan in place, and that plan is ready to go. So that's really how we can deal with overwhelm effectively. Just not just about writing down all the things that are causing you to feel overwhelmed. It's about looking at how your feelings are tied into that, and all of these things we talked here, your thoughts, how it's connected to your purpose, your actions that feeling of overwhelm is causing you to take. Is it causing you to comfort eat? What is it causing you to do? And are your surroundings optimized, or are they contributing to that feeling of overwhelm? And then prioritizing what is the most important thing to do, tied back into your purpose and vision. Picking the low-hanging fruit or the simple steps, breaking it into bite-sized chunks, and then really celebrating those accomplishments to quash that level of overwhelm. So I hope that makes sense. How to deal with overwhelm. 5 simple steps using the Wellbeing Warrior framework to really anchor yourself into making sure you're doing all those checks and balances to optimize your well-being. So in part 2, it's all about how can we boost our confidence. And in high performance coaching, we talk about the confidence loop. And this is all around when you build your competence, you increase your level of confidence, and vice versa. So this is a great cycle. So the more you build your confidence, the more your competence is likely to increase. So if we think about how does this look like on a graph, your competence, if your competence goes up, your confidence will go up, and it could step up like this. And so until you'll keep going and building on each one. So the question is, how do we really build our confidence? So obviously one of the great things we can do is focus on improving our competence. But if I reflect back to a year ago now, thinking about, in fact, it was 2 years ago, 2 years ago when I first rebranded myself into the coaching marketplace, I had absolutely no experience of building a website, and I knew that I needed to do some learning. So my competence was really low, but I knew that I could reach out for help. And I knew that if I just took the time that was necessary to build my competence, that my confidence in my ability to build that website would also grow. So there's 5 things that you can do, and I'm sure there's more, but there's 5 things here that you can really do to boost your confidence. So the first thing is to identify the blockers. What is blocking you from being confident in your life? So perhaps starting off, it's a competency issue. Perhaps you don't feel competent in what you're doing. Now, if we reflect back to the example I just gave in terms of feeling overwhelmed, or back to the website, the blocker I had was building my website and not having any competence in it. But what I knew I could do is if I chose the right website domain or the right hosting package, that I could get the support network within that to help me boost my competence. So that really is all about reaching out for help. So identify the blockers in what's holding you back from building your confidence. And a lot of it is actually that learning piece. So understand the root cause of your lack of confidence. It's really important to dig right down to the root cause of the problem, so that you truly understand what is really holding you back from moving forward. The next thing is, what actions do you need to take in order to remove the root cause that's causing you to not have the confidence that you really do need? So what steps can you take to move yourself forward? So I knew for me, I needed to dedicate that time to learn how to use the new website material, website hosting package. And in fact, since doing that, I now have the competence to support my dad in his website and building the website that we have for the Peter and Paula Pixie book, Peter Pixie Visits the Rescue Centre. So by identifying the steps I need to take, not only does it help me in the near term, it also helps me in the future. So think about the actions that you need to take, and also focus on the time that is necessary for you to learn new things so that you can really build your competence. And that therefore will help you increase your level of confidence. And don't underestimate when you're learning something new, like building a website, using Word, whatever it may happen to be. Don't underestimate the time it will take to really learn how to use it and really build your competence in that area. So the fourth step is learning. There are an awful lot of times that people get held back from really moving forward because they don't fully appreciate the degree of learning that's necessary to boost their level of competence, to increase their degree of confidence. And it's something that I think I fell foul of many years ago, not focusing on all the learning that was necessary for me to be more confident in the space that I was operating in, not focusing on the need to read books like this, to read material that will really build my degree of confidence and that competence, and then therefore help my level of confidence. And then finally, back to what I said earlier, is make sure you celebrate it. So one of the reasons that I did Wellbeing Warrior Monthly Live was to really boost my level of confidence in going live in front of the camera, going live for YouTube, going live for anything really. 2 years ago, I was terrified of getting in front of the camera. I'm now able to do live sessions for an hour or more, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't have focused on learning how to do it, reaching out to people who give you guidance and counselling on what's the best way to do that, and also learning how to do it myself, and accepting that when you do something for the first time, it's going to be messy. That's just the way it happens. As you notice here, it was a bit messy initially. It will be messy, but be okay with that. Be okay with the fact that messiness helps you learn, reflect on the things that perhaps didn't go as well as you wanted them to, and then focus on improving them the next time, making sure you don't make that mistake again. Focus on helping improve and learn, and you'll really grow then and climb this confidence competence ladder. Celebration is so important, something that we really do not do enough of. And it doesn't have to be a big celebration. It could be perhaps just going for a coffee, obviously decaf, or just saying to yourself, congratulating yourself out loud, putting a smiley on the calendar, something simple. It doesn't have to be huge, but just giving yourself that nice boost, that dopamine boost inside, that serotonin boost, to really lift your spirits. So that's all around how to boost your confidence. First of all, identify your blockers. Secondly, look at the root cause behind the reason you're lacking in confidence. And then you need to tackle those individually. So look at those independently of one another. Look at the actions you need to take to tackle your root causes, what learning you need to undertake, and making sure that you really truly celebrate your successes on your journey as you climb this ladder. Obviously, you can think of this as a stairway to heaven, if you like, and you want to focus on celebrating at each step. So really do make sure that you celebrate increasing your level of confidence and the journey that you're going on. So I hope you found that useful. Now, in part 3, we're talking about brain function, how parts of your brain contribute to you feeling really overwhelmed. So just going to go through the top part of the brain, then I'm going to go through the inner workings of the brain and talk a little bit about how the brain affects your feeling of overwhelm and what you can really do about it. So if we look at the top part of the brain, this is the front of the head, this is the back of the head, although perhaps it doesn't look like that. This is the frontal lobe. Part of the frontal lobe is the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive function of your brain. It's the cop of your brain, so to speak. It's the part of your brain that stops you from saying stupid things out loud. It's the part of your brain that helps you with the planning, the forethought. And if we are in a region of overwhelm, depending on what how your brain operates, if you suffer from ADD or ADHD, when you focus, the prefrontal cortex typically drops in activity, which means you lose that ability of forethought, you lose the ability to concentrate on the tasks that are necessary. So when you're suffering from a condition such as that, if you've got lots of tasks that are really not going to stimulate you, not exciting, they're not new, they're not novel, they're not scary, that will potentially create a situation where you feel overwhelmed, because there's lots of tasks that your brain actually struggles to concentrate on, because when you focus on it, your activity level in your brain goes down. So depending on your brain makeup is, will depend on how effective you can really deal with overwhelm. Another area here is your temporal lobe. Your temporal lobe also, within it, contains the amygdala, which is your fight or flight response. And your temporal lobe is responsible for thoughts, for your memory. So if you have any reduction in activity in your temporal lobe, that can affect how you are able to deal with overwhelm. And the back here is your cerebellum, which deals with learning as well. So it's important that we think about the brain function and really understand how our brains work in order to establish how do we really deal with overwhelm. So within the interior workings of the brain, we have the anterior cingulate gyrus, which is responsible for shifting attention and error detection. So this is like your gear shifter in your brain, and people that have have an overactive ACG or anterior cingulate gyrus may get stuck on a certain thought, may say no a lot. No, I don't want to do that before you've even asked the question. And so that will affect how they can deal with overwhelm, because they may be that gear shifter may be a little bit stuck. And finally, the basal ganglia, which is really the area that is responsible for how you feel, your pleasure, your motivation, and it helps with adjusting movements. That's really the area that deep within your limbic system that will affect how you deal with overwhelm. So the question is, what do we do about it? Well, the main thing here is to focus on the actions that reduce the risk of you getting overwhelmed in the first place. So one of the things that we can do if we're thinking about the prefrontal cortex is giving ourselves enough time to think about what is most important to us. And if you're struggling with focusing on the menial tasks, the ones that are not necessarily going to stimulate you, I know this is one of my struggles, is I'm really good at doing new stuff. I think I've got ADD, I'll find out when I go to the yoga clinics. I'm really good at doing new stuff, exciting stuff. I get stimulated through lots of adrenaline. I'm really bad at doing repetitive tasks or mundane tasks that really don't require a lot of stimulation. And so for me, the way I deal with overwhelm in that circumstance is I ask somebody like my husband to do the stuff I'm not so good at so that I can focus on the stuff that I really am good at. Temporal lobe involved with learning. This is the region where people have suffered from dyslexia. Again, if it's the learning that you're struggling with that's causing you to feel overwhelmed, who can you ask for help to improve that level of learning? What additional time do you need to take in order to allow that learning to embed itself? Obviously, the older we get, the longer it takes us to learn and digest stuff. Going back to the prefrontal cortex, if you're dealing with overwhelm, alcohol is not great for the brain, and that will drop your prefrontal cortex. That will literally turn the cop off in your brain, and so you have the potential to get brain fog, do stupid things that is not really going to move you forward, not necessarily going to reduce your level of overwhelm. You may be using it as self-medication to help you block the overwhelm that you're feeling, but actually you're not getting rid of it. So think about what else could you do differently to remove the level of overwhelm. Now, one of the great things that you can do, which will boost your level of serotonin, which will help your basal ganglia and also boost your level of dopamine, is go out and do some exercise. So think about when you are best in terms of your person. When do you best operate? Do you best operate shortly after doing exercise? Certainly works for me, because I know that I've lifted all of those neurotransmitters in my body to really help me boost my level of motivation, boost my level of happiness. So if you are in a space of overwhelm, go out for a walk, go and get some fresh air, reset your brain, do some perhaps calming meditation, do breathe in for 2, hold for 3, and breathe out for 4. So in for 2, hold for 3, 1, 2, 3, and out for 4, to really calm yourself down, calm your brain down, and get yourself ready to face that to-do list that you have, to do the activities that I talked about, so that you can focus on reducing that degree of overwhelm. And the anterior cingulate gyrus, again, if your brain is stuck as a gear shifter, then you need to focus on not getting stuck in that place. So give people options. If you know somebody that's struggling from having an overactive ACG, then give people options rather than telling them what to do, so that they can make the decision themselves and they're not going to stuck in the no land. They'll be able to make a decision and not feel overwhelmed by everything. Those with the temporal lobe, this also can get very angry, a very short fuse. You can get a short fuse here as well, but really, really bad temper, sometimes get dark thoughts. So you again need to think about, how can I approach that person, or if you suffer from memory issues or anger management issues, is how can you manage that to not get that feeling of overwhelm and that feeling that you're going to explode. Again, one great thing to do here is to go out and get some exercise to help you really balance your temporal lobe. So that's all about the brain function, things that you can do to deal with overwhelm. Don't drink loads of alcohol as a medication. Focus on the time that you best operate in the day to really tackle those aspects of overwhelm. Win the morning is what we would say in high performance coaching. So rather than doing all of the low hanging fruit in the morning and then hoping that you'll have the afternoon to tackle the big things, try and get those big things done in the morning after you've perhaps exercised, got yourself refreshed and ready to go, so that you're operating at your best to do the things that are the hardest things to do, and then knock off the other aspects of your to-do list later on in the day, so you're not piling things up and creating a bow wave of issues for yourself. You can really tackle those hard-hitting things first. So I hope you enjoyed this session. If we go back, I know I've come a little bit short. If we go back over to what we talked about, we'll just refresh on the 3 points. So the first part of the session was how to deal with overwhelm. It was looking at the Wellbeing Warrior framework, going through the facts, and then 5 steps to take to really help you reduce that level of overwhelm, making sure that you celebrate it at the end, celebrate your successes. Secondly, we talked about how can you really boost your level of confidence, and this was looking at the confidence loop and making sure that you take those 5 simple steps, again celebrating at the end to make sure that you are acknowledging your successes, acknowledging your learning, and therefore helping you boost your confidence in the process as your competency increases. And then finally, we briefly looked at brain function, looking at the different aspects of the brain, making sure that you're spending the time understanding how your brain operates, making sure you take the supplements that are necessary to support your brain function, reading the relevant literature on that matter, and looking at the times of the day when you can best operate to help you reduce that level of overwhelm, to help you tackle the big things that you need to tackle and not try and cram them in at the end of the day when you're too tired, perhaps, and your brain is not optimal. So I hope you enjoyed today's Wellbeing Warrior Monthly Live. I have to say, very sadly, having looked at myself at the level of overwhelm that I'm dealing with at this present moment in time, with being a mum and so on, and trying to run my business, this Wellbeing Warrior Monthly Live will no longer be running after today. I'm going to put it on hold so I can focus on being a mum. I looked at the things that are priority for me, and this is unfortunately going to fall off the priority list. However, what I will do is make sure that all of the sessions that I've recorded so far will be made available in your members area, so you can go back over them. There's loads of great material in there for you to review and reflect on, and I would love to have some comments posted in each of those sessions. I will send out a feedback form with regards to Wellbeing Warrior Monthly. I'd love to get your feedback on the program, and I will potentially restart it next year, or perhaps rebrand it going forward as I focus on brain health coaching. It's been an absolute pleasure doing Wellbeing Warrior Month. I really love coaching live on camera, but it's an awful lot of work to get it all set up. So I'm looking forward to coming back in a year's time, maybe in a slightly different guise. Look out for some clips on YouTube where I'll be posting some of this material on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook as I move forward my business into the Wellbeing Warrior coaching space with a big focus on brain health. I'm now going to go to my phone, which is over here, and see if there are any comments associated with this session. Do make sure you write some comments about it. I'd love to get your feedback, and hopefully within the next 72 hours this will be made available in your members area, broken down into the 3 parts. So if I go to my phone, refresh. Very insightful, says Paula. Still thinking about Peter Pixie. I can now do more work. Thanks very much. Very best of luck with Peter Pixie on Friday. I look forward to hearing all about how it goes. I'm looking forward to celebrating your successes. So with that in mind, have a fantastic evening. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Make sure you think about what's your favourite book so far this year, or what's the book that you're going to read as part of World Book Day, which is today. I never thought I would be excited about it. I didn't used to read a lot of books, but now I read loads. So I hope you think about what your learning is going to be for this year and how you can take yourself to the next level and really boost your well-being and your brain health so that you can be the best of who you can be. Believe, overcome, succeed, and soar. I look forward to coming back to you next year. Take care.